Welcome to Soul Elevation, where you can guide your ascension to new heights. I'm your host, Kara Goodwin, and this episode with York Wang is fascinating and super fun. We find out about his spiritual journey, which evolved into him connecting with an Arcturian and ultimately creating healing energy tools using the teachings of the Arcturian with remarkable results. He has also connected with an Essasani being named Shoshaina, and he channels this being in the second half of the episode. York Wang's life took a profound turn during the stillness of the COVID era when he stumbled upon the Sedona Method and the transformative power of letting go. What began as a deep fascination evolved into an extraordinary awakening, one that led him into direct contact with higher dimensional beings. Through lucid dreams and physical world synchronicities, York found himself guided by the Arcturians, who taught him how to channel, heal, and create energetic tools. Now, as a professional channeler and energy worker, York collaborates with Sha'Shaina from the civilization of Essasani, bringing forward wisdom, healing, and powerful energetic transmissions. And in this episode, he shares his incredible journey, insights from multidimensional guides, and a live channeling session to tap into higher knowledge. So we'll dive into that in just a moment. But first, I'd love for you to check out karagoodwin.com, where you can get a free 10-minute meditation, learn to meditate with my 21-day online program, or join the Healing Hearth membership, where you can get live online assistance with your questions about meditation and life. And I'm also so excited about my book that's coming out this spring, Your Authentic Awakening, A Guide to Everyday Spiritual Living. And you can find more information about that and so much more on karagoodwin.com. And now, enjoy this episode. Well, welcome, York. I'm so excited to have you here today. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much, Kara. I'm excited to have this conversation with you.
So I mentioned this before we started recording, but in case anybody is watching this, because, some people listen to it, some people watch the video, but when we started, there was not this like overlay on your camera. For those watching the video, at least while we're recording, there's like this prismatic overlay that has shown up. And I'm sure that the light reflecting off is somewhat of an element of this, but you can't see it on your side. I can see it on my side. Mm-hmm. You can't see it, which I find really fascinating, particularly because we plan to connect with interdimensional, extra-dimensional beings. And so I think that's noteworthy that there is this beautiful like overlay of rainbow light on your screen. So we'll just note that and see what happens as we keep going. Mm-hmm. But anyway, welcome. I'm so happy that you're here. I'm fascinated by your story. Mm-hmm. So let's dive into that. Tell us about your spiritual awakening and how you began to connect with Arcturians and then the later beings that you started to work with.
Yeah, so in the very beginning, it was during COVID time. And as many people are, I was a little depressed during that time. There was not a lot of like bonding or community at all. So basically, I found myself getting into a process called Sedona Method, which is a process of letting go of specific emotions. And because I was in such like a depressed state, I pretty much invested all of my time into it. So like 6 hours a day, 12 hours a day, I would pretty much just be doing that. And luckily, I had the time to do that, right? Because like, not everyone has the opportunity for that, but that's pretty much how I use my time. And over that period of 3 months, my whole body became very light. My emotions became very different. The way I responded to things, very different. And it was during that period that I began receiving dreams of extraterrestrial contact, which I now understand to be my contact with the Arcturians.
And were you interested in ETs prior to this?
I had knowledge of them, but I wasn't very it was always very something that's out there for me. Like I always thought it was not someone normal would get into. Mm-hmm. But obviously things have a different turn. So
Well, I had a similar experience with my awakening. Like when I was little,
Hmm.
I was fascinated by the prospect of ETs and UFOs. But then as I became an adult, I kind of started the people that I respected and the cultures that was immersed in. It was like a silly thing, and people
Right.
didn't really pay attention to it or didn't believe it. And I started to adopt that.
Hmm.
And so then I went through a spiritual awakening, and it was years into the spiritual awakening that I actually even understood that there was a role for ETs and started to open up to the possibility. But I know at the beginning of my spiritual journey, I didn't have context for it and I didn't believe. I
Hmm.
thought it was, I didn't give credence to it. So
Yeah.
I sympathize with your perspective.
No, I definitely feel that as well. For the people who are skeptical, I say like nowadays it doesn't really matter if you believe in them or not. If you find their information to be helpful, then just take that and you can like think of it as like um the subconscious or whatever intelligence you want it to be. But just try the stuff, and if it works out for you, then you know, see where that takes you. Yeah.
Yeah. So you started to feel contact or perceive contact in your dreams.
Yes.
And so where did it go from there?
It started with a regular dream, and then I was pulled into a series of lucid dreams, into contact with them. So what I perceived them to be at the time was like a being of light, and they pretty much just sat me down and then showed me a bunch of holographic images, ideas and concepts about like oneness, polarities, light and darkness, mm, things about raising consciousness, things of that nature. And then the day after that experience that I had for the first time, one of my friends who's also into spirituality, but unprompted, he sent me an article about Arcturians, which had the same exact concepts and ideas and
Oh, that
images
gives me
like
chills.
in the 2D form. Yeah.
Wow.
So that
The
was like,
same images that you saw holographically,
yeah.
he sent to you that is profound because that's very specific too. It's
Mhm.
not just like, hey, read this article about, you know, I don't know what's popular. I don't know, politics or whatever, and it's like,
Right.
oh my gosh, I had a dream about politics. Those things catch my attention when it's like so specific
Mhm.
and unusual, and then we get it reflected like really quickly in our waking reality.
Yeah. So I thought that was like a big trigger point as to like me beginning to open up to the idea that all of this was real. And then I started receiving lessons around like healing and making tools of energy. And I just started healing with like family, people around me. And then that led to a neighbor of ours hearing about the healing that I was doing for like family and stuff like that. And then he asked me to do one for him. He was more of a serious case, so to speak. He had cervical dystonia, which is a condition where there's a pinched nerve and you can't turn your head more than a little bit. He'd been looking for doctors or medication, things like that to help it for years upon years. And all I did was just listen to the guidance from my guides and the Arcturians. And a day after, he was pretty much healed. So things like that, just
And
like,
so, what are the tools? Like, are you creating physical tools or energetic, or are you doing some kind of modality?
yeah. So the tools in themselves, they've changed a lot from the beginning, but they're tools of consciousness. The ways Arcturian describe it is like they're light that you code. So like a similar way to how you can program a computer or like program certain applications, you program the light and energy to create certain functions. So since then, I've developed a lot of tools around like physical changes or like reproducing neurochemicals, things like that, as well as like spiritual processes. So really exciting stuff, personally.
Yeah, that's so cool. What do you think? is your connection with the Arcturians beyond the human level? Like, why do you think that the Arcturians are working with you?
I think obviously everything, at least from my perspective, everything exists in the here and now. So from a linear perspective, although I make the connection that I had at like past lives as an Arcturian, it's just that I'm making connections to the Arcturian selves, parallel selves from this moment. I think it's just like agreements I've made before incarnating here to either receive this technology, develop it, and things along that nature.
So you see them there as being a connection with these beings in other realities or other parallel dimensions.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, awesome. Now, if I understand correctly, your contact has expanded beyond the Arcturians. Can you tell us about that?
So throughout working with the Arcturians, I also learned to explore within consciousness other dimensions. So I've made and learned a lot from other civilizations, civilizations that are completely different in the way that their energy body is structured, the way that they perceive things, and the way they can function in reality. Um, so I've learned a lot, met a lot of different ideas, but one of the more recent ones is Shoshaina, which is a entity from the civilization of Essasani. He was introduced to me by the Arcturians, and personally, I just really like the concepts and ideas that he breaks down in a very easy to understand and practical format.
And the Essasani are human hybrids, correct? Can
Yes.
you talk a little bit about that civilization?
hmm Do you want the whole story or the summarized
Sure,
version? Okay, so
sure.
pretty much,
This is where Bashar, right?
yes,
Bashar is Essasani. Is
yes,
that right?
yes, yes.
Okay.
So, um, yeah, so the Essasani is pretty much our, we're technically their ancestors in a way because they're humans from the future parallel reality. So, what happened to begin with is in another parallel reality, the human society has developed very scientifically, but they developed in such a way that they lost touch with their emotional side. So they're completely centered around rationality, logic, and science in that way. Because of that development, they lost their ability to reproduce in a biological manner. So what they had to do is travel to different dimensions in order to get the biological like DNA and things like that to help reintroduce into their society in order to reproduce once again for the survival of their race. So that was the Greys, so to speak. And the Essassani is like a few generations out. So that the Essassanis now have an understanding built upon the past of the Greys, as well as an emotional component, which were co created by us. So, in a sense, they're a result of us, the Greys, and other civilizations coming together.
Wow. It's very mind bending because we could think about like if our civilization doesn't go down that path, like if we keep our emotional connection, we nurture that and we don't go down that path, and of course there would be a timeline where that's true.
Mm-hmm.
So then does that future do Essasani exist in that future, in that timeline? I mean, you could go around in circles with it.
Right, right. They say is like everything exists here and now. So that means all parallel realities exist, right? It's just a matter of which ones you're connecting to. So so even if we do go down a different timeline that they do, they're a result of their timeline, but we're creating a different timeline and connecting to it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it is very mind bendy for
Mm-hmm.
sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I'm excited for you to channel. I have one more question
Mm-hmm.
before we go into the channeling. And that would be if there are people listening who want to connect and deepen their connection or create a connection with ETs like the Arcturians or the Essasani.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any advice?
I would say the most important thing is to raise your frequency and vibration first. Um, a lot of the reasons why people can't contact them is mainly because of there's too much of a vibrational gap.
Okay.
Um, yeah, it takes a lot of energy for them to condense or densify themselves, but by raising your frequency, you're you're making the connection easier, so to speak.
Right. Okay. Awesome.
Mhm.
Good. Well, are you ready to channel?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Okay, so you were telling me before we started recording, it just requires like a little bit of a meditation on your side.
Yes.
Will they come in and kind of give a hello, or how do I know when I should start interacting?
Yes, they'll just come in and say hello.
Okay.
Yeah. Greetings. How are you today as you create time and space?
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being here.
It is a pleasure to interact with you.
So let's start with your relationship with York. I talked about this with him a little bit before he brought you in, but I'd love to hear your perspective.
Understand that each individual has many different connections that they're connecting to in this present moment. This means what you perceive to be past lives, future lives, are all actually happening right now. As you raise your frequency and vibration, the connections in past lives, future lives that you make connections to will evolve along with you. That means you'll connect to different lives, different aspects of yourself, reflections of yourself as you continue this game of ascension. So, pretty much, our connection to him is that we are another reflection of him in another life. Does that help?
That's beautiful. And are you, who's speaking through York, are you part of a collective? Are you physical beings, light beings? Are you living on ships? Tell us what it's like for you.
We are a individual at the same time collective. And what this means is that our society has evolved to a point where we can communicate and tap into any knowledge bank or resource within the collective, but at the same time, we retain our individuality. We live very different lives. I personally am on a ship and I travel in between different societies and dimensions.
Oh, that's amazing. And are you physical?
We are what you can term fourth density turning to fifth density. And in that sense, we're quasi physical,
Okay.
transitioning into non physical.
Okay, thank you. And is your ship, you said you travel on a ship between dimensions. Right now, where York and I are in time and space, is your ship located near Earth?
Yes, we are above what you call Sedona at the moment.
Okay. And I'm speaking with the Arcturian being or the Essasani being?
Essasani.
Oh, okay. Okay. Wonderful. So I understand Bashar's ship is also above, is it Cathedral Rock in Sedona?
It changes
Or
time to
Bell
time,
Rock?
but that is a point where he may choose to stay.
Okay. So as we're recording this, it is 2025. We're at the beginning of 2025. Do you have anything you can share about what humanity can expect this year?
Do understand that predictions is never a definite sense, in the sense of nothing is definite. Predictions are only a picture of the momentum energy is going at this time. Now, whenever we give predictions, that means upon receiving the information, that prediction can be changed by itself. Is that making sense?
Yes.
So, the general momentum of the collective you are in at this moment is that open contact is here. It will be here and is here, but will unfold more upon the 3 to 5 years of your time.
Okay.
But remember,
So please
external
go ahead.
things are a reflection of your own consciousness. This means by changing your own consciousness, you will connect to the realities that are more in alignment with your vibration and frequency. So, open contact, in a sense, is your own internal consciousness, is willingness to interact with ETs on an equal level.
Okay. And in that sense, are you connecting or channeling through other beings in addition to York?
Not at the moment.
Okay. And what about your connection with other civilizations, other dimensions, other planets? Are you primarily focused on Earth, or are you connecting with other civilizations in other places?
We simply follow our excitement in every moment. So, wherever our excitement leads us. But at the moment, mostly Earth, for the purpose of facilitating open contact.
Okay. And I understand that the Essassani are a civilization that where the hybridization program is especially relevant. And there are many people going through a spiritual awakening who feel a connection with hybrid children. Are there any messages that you would have for people who feel that connection, who want to explore that connection, nurture that connection?
Know that that connection is real. So within your imagination, play with the children, connect with them, and send your thoughts of love, appreciation, acceptance through your mind, imagination. Do understand that imagination is actually real. It is as real as your physical reality. It's all a matter of perspective. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yes, thank you. And when it comes to, you mentioned about contact, and when we're talking about hybrid children, and I know that, again, going back to Bashar, because that's my personal frame of reference with the Essassani, he talks about there being civilization, that the Essassani will be first contact for humanity, and that there will be Essassani living on the planet. Is that something that you also see happening in our near future?
Essasani will be one of the first, but before that, there will be another hybrid civilization which will be introduced. Because they are still closer in vibration than we are to you.
And do they have a name?
They do, but not at the moment.
And what is their connection with the Essassani?
They are
a more quote unquote advanced in the sense of improved upon genetically. But of course, all things being equal, they're just another expression which is closer to your perspective, perception, and ability to integrate within your society.
Okay. So, how can people tune into energies and messages that might be coming from the Essassani or from other ETs and interdimensionals?
Simply be open to whatever you may receive. You can set the intention to connect with us, and there's a specific calling card for our specific civilization, which you can find if you simply look it up on the interwebs. But the idea is when you follow your excitement, when you follow what brings you joy, you are, in a sense, raising your frequency and vibration and opening yourself up to the radio waves or frequencies that are more in alignment with ours. So there is more openness to be able to receive our communications.
Okay, let's expand on that calling card because the internet is a vast place with a lot of conflicting information. So while we have you, can you talk a little bit about that calling card?
It is simply an image to help you tune yourself to our collective consciousness. To describe it, it is a black square behind blue light with blue light behind it.
Okay.
It's quite simple. You will see images of it if you search up Essasani in general. It will show up.
Okay. And then how would people use that to strengthen their connection?
Simply look at it, meditate to it, allow yourself to intend to connect to it. It is all happening within your consciousness and imagination to begin with. Your imagination is a link to your higher mind. It is what your higher mind uses to communicate with you, as long as there is no belief that imagination is simply fantasy.
I love that. Is there anything that do you have any messages that you would like to share with people who are listening?
If you follow your excitement, we have something called the excitement formula. Pretty much what this is boiled down to simple steps, which is 1. Follow your excitement to the highest degree possible at any moment to the best of your ability. Always remain in a positive state no matter what happens. Have no insistence or resistance towards whatever needs to happen or you think has to happen for the unfoldment. And as negative beliefs come up, investigate them, inquire into them. Why are they here? What would I have to believe is true for me to feel this way? And replace them with beliefs that are more in alignment with the person you say you want to be, the person you prefer to be. And lastly, repeat all those steps. What this does is begin to raise your frequency and vibration. Now, as you raise your frequency and vibration, negative limiting beliefs, which limit your frequency, will then come up to the surface as you're shaking at such a frequency. What's stagnant will begin to come up. And what that means is, as it comes up, you have two choices. You have the choice to continue looking at that frequency, that limiting belief, and once again, limiting yourself to it, or let it go, which then allows you to vibrate faster and raise your frequency.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you. Now, that's profound advice that we can take and act upon as humanity. Are you also offering, through your energetic connection with the planet and where you're physically located in Sedona, are you sending energies? Are you supporting the planet from an energetic perspective in a more collective way in that way as well?
Yes. Sometimes we go to energetic vortexes in order to help balance out certain polarities, certain negativity, to assist in the unfoldment of open contact.
Okay. And can you talk a little bit about what your life is like on the ship above Sedona? Are you with family? Are you on a very large ship? Is it more of a personal solo mission? Tell us your what it's like for you.
I'm currently by myself on a smaller ship. I travel very often, so if at any point my excitement is to be with friends and explore that particular area, then we will simply travel there. But at the moment, my excitement lays in communicating with and assisting Earth in this way.
That's fascinating. And for you in particular, do you have human parents who are here incarnated on the planet right now?
Not so much human parents as you would say, but in a sense, we consider you to be our ancestors because you provided the genetic blueprints a good amount to help assist us into being. So, in that sense, yes, there are humans who have contributed to our development in that way.
Okay. Oh, it's fascinating. Thank you so much. Is there anything else that you'd like to say before we bring York back?
As always, follow your excitement and understand that we are only a reflection of your own higher mind. The same way that you are a reflection of us. And with that, until next time, Aveir. Hello.
Well, that was amazing. Thank you so much.
Of course, of course.
So for you, how much of that, how present were you for that? Are you more in a trance or are you there?
Sort of in both. It's kind of like taking a back seat in a car, as well as like a little daydream.
Okay. And did you already have an idea that it would be, I forget what the name, it starts with an SH,
Shoshaina.
the Essasani?
Yeah, yeah.
Did you know it was going to be that? Because I thought it would be the Arcturians. So I didn't even catch on to that until a little while in.
The Arcturians, they haven't come out to speak in a more public setting for the time that I've channeled them. So
Oh, interesting. So your front man is the Essasani guy.
yeah, and then when I'm making like energy tools and things like that, I'm working with the Arcturians.
Okay. That's wonderful. And with the with those energy tools, is there light language within that? Do you see those symbols and
There's light language as in symbols.
yeah, that's what well, because of course light language can be spoken, but it can be written, it can be done with the body, with the hands.
Right.
But I'm thinking more like the symbols that we see.
Not so much. In a sense, it is light language because we're communicating with light to make the code in the first place. But it's more so it's really hard to describe because there's not like very much words to use to describe it, but it's like concepts held within consciousness. It's not really using words or symbols that much.
Okay.
Yeah.
The kind of the root of my question is that I have had some multidimensional experiences and traversed different layers of, I guess different dimensions. Like you say, there's not really words for it. It's kind of like I try to interpret what I have experienced with what I know and what other people talk about. So it's like, well, and there are times where I pass through a barrier, where it's like, it just changes. It changes from one level of like density, like how densely packed patterns are and the feel of the, and it goes into something that is different. It just feels different, looks different. In that in-between state where I'm kind of passing through a barrier, there have been like a couple of times where I sense an Arcturian presence, and then there's a technology that is part of it, and I don't know much about the technology, but there is a if I'm even accessing the memory correctly, it's like there does seem to be some symbols that are part of it, but it's also like, and there's light. It's like an iridescent blue, like electric blue color. And I can't grasp it well enough to be like, oh, this thing that I can describe. But it was like, oh, there's a technology that's helping me. There's a technology from the Arcturians that's helping me to pass through this barrier. It's like escorting me,
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense.
No,
but.
definitely. I think there's also different, like Arcturians have different talents and different quote unquote jobs. There are certain Arcturians which work in symbols and things like that. The one I've worked with doesn't use symbols that often. But yeah, no, that definitely sounds like a experience that could be related to Arcturians.
Yeah. It's fascinating. Well, York, this has just been amazing. How can people find out more about you and connect with you?
Right now, I only have a Discord server for the community. I'll send you a link for that.
I think I found you on there, but I don't know Discord very well. So I found you, but then I didn't know what to do from there. And
Okay.
I think I put a request for you, maybe. And then I never got any I probably don't have notifications set up, and I don't think to go in there. So
Okay. I'll send it there, and then I'm thinking of posting some free tools on a YouTube channel as well. So that'll just be Illuminate Network. Yeah. But that's all
Awesome.
I have for websites and things like that.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. This has been fascinating
Thank you so
and
much.
wonderful. Thank you for listening to this episode of Soul Elevation. Please take a moment and think about someone in your life who might be uplifted or have their curiosity sparked by this content, and send it on to them. Let's intentionally share high-frequency, empowering content to reinforce the highest potential for humanity. And I also invite you to subscribe to this content. Thank you so much for your support, and I'll see you for the next episode of Soul Elevation.